Hey everybody, how you doing? Shout out to Naima. I was just listening to something. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me now? I think you should be able to hear me now. I'm not going to stay long because that other video about the single mothers was really much longer than I anticipated it was going to be. I thought I was going to blitz through those statistics, and it turned out to be a bit longer than I'd initially hoped. Um, yeah, Monday morning. No, it's Monday afternoon here. I know it's Monday morning for a lot of the guys who are in the States. So happy Pick Me Monday. Pick Me Monday. I haven't got an image for Pick Me Monday. So the image is I would get Kevin Samuels and O'Shea Duke Jackson around the table and I would try and cook them something tasty. I've got a thing about watching men eat. I don't know why. I just obviously not my food because it's not always that good. But I can order on Uber Eats really well, so it's fine. I'll just warm the plate, I'll plate it up, and it will look just like I cooked it. So that's my image for Pick Me Monday. To all you doormats out there, to all you women who are being abused and used by these horrid black men, but you still stay loyal, salute. And to you strong, independent ladies with your degrees and cats, good luck when the zombie apocalypse, speaking of zombies, okay, when it hits, you've got to be ready. Give me 1 second. What is the best dish I cook? I cook some really good rice and peas. Like when I've got that ginger in there with the garlic and a little, the secret to really good rice and peas is a dash of milk, just literal cow's milk. When if you blend everything up, so you've got your garlic, your ginger, scotch bonnet pepper, cream coconut, or maybe some coconut milk, a good knob of butter in the water as you boil the real peas, and then before you add the rice, you put a bit of milk. Oh my gosh, that is one of the best things. Because when I used to live with a friend, she always used to make the chicken, and I always got relegated to making the rice. So, um, yeah, is rice and peas is quite good. I saw that chicken that you fried, man. That's why I went over to the channel. Somebody was talking. Pick Me definitely is a woman who wants a man. Why is this thing on the screen? Take this off. Oh, I don't want to press it because it might take me somewhere I don't want to go. Pick Me definition is a woman who wants a man who doesn't want her as much as she wants him. Yeah, a pick me is somebody who basically will do anything to get a man. She will pander and placate in any way possible. And at the end of the day, most women are pick me's if they're single because they want to be picked. And there's nothing wrong with that because I actually want to do a video and I was kind of getting some research going on the concept of taking pleasure in catering to your man because you know I hear a lot of these chicks talking and they're like, oh, I don't want an older man because I don't want to have to, wipe the drool from his mouth and change his diapers. And I'm like, if that man took you up when you were young and he's given you a house, he's given you a car, he's left money for you, he's done all the things a man should do, that means you never really loved him as a person. You only really loved him for what he could do. And once he wasn't able to do it, then you basically just abandoned him. And that's not right. So yeah, it's not right. That's why for me personally, if I'm with a guy, I have to love that person for who they are. Like no matter what's going on, I have to love them for who they are as a person so that when we're arguing, when we have issues, when we have good times and bad times, I don't think I need to leave this person. Wait a minute. I'm going to touch this thing. Get it off the screen. I've got a notification here and it's just sitting there. So yeah, that's how I personally feel. Is it easy caring for a sick spouse? It's not. Especially as you get older and maybe you've got health issues. taking care of a man and loving him when he's ill is not an easy thing to do. But it's like the good times and the fond memories see you through. And even though the person may be technically alive, you're kind of grieving them. You're grieving because the life that you had and the love that you had and the things you used to do is gone. So yeah, um, catering is okay, but it can't be to a man who has no interest in you. And this is where a lot of these people, and this is partly why I'm jumping online. I've always got to have a kick in the behind. So you you can hit me up and like, where's the video? Give us a video. I wouldn't mind, because procrastination is a problem, along with losing the remote. Okay. Let me turn this down. You see, a lot of the women who complain online, they're really angry at their choices. That's where the problem is. That's not the video, but seeing as you bring this up, it's not being wholly invested in your man. You should be wholly invested in your husband. And I always have to clarify this. Shout out to Kim from Wifey for Life. She did an awesome video. I think it's about a week ago now. And she spoke on we only submit to our husbands. A lot of the problems with dating and mating in the Black community is the lines are too blurred between the stages of a relationship. And I did actually, I've done 2 videos on that now. Clearly defined dating stages in the Black community. When you are meeting somebody for the first time, I personally don't support things like expensive dates, because the person who is paying for the date feels like they're being cheated. But also the person who takes the or is the recipient of the money and the dates and the gifts, they are almost cheating the person, because if it's the guy paying, there's an expectation for sex at the end. And that's not right, okay? No, don't worry, you're not throwing me off topic, because it kind of ties into why I started doing the live stream in the first place. You just don't want to put yourself in a position where you can be accused of fleecing somebody out of money or gifts or dates, or being a dinner whore or something like this. It's just not a good look. And one of the biggest issues I think Black people have is trust. There's a lot of breakdown of trust in the Black community, and it kind of always will go back. For me, it always goes back to the family, because that's the foundation of a society. That's where you learn your initial, and that's what we're going to touch on a little bit, because I don't really read in depth. So as a result of that, the way we view potential partners is always going to be around the framework of the interactions we had with the people closest to us while we're growing up, which is usually primary caregivers, aka our parents and maybe siblings and things like that. So if you have a traumatic upbringing, it's going to impact the way you view future relationships. And in the video that Kim did, she was saying we don't submit to a husband because a husband is a covenant contract. A spouse is somebody who you have taken a vow before God, man, and the state to say that I'm going to love you till death do us part, that it's a lifelong commitment. I owe you certain things. Even the scripture says that the husband's body does not belong to himself, it belongs to his wife. The wife's body does not belong to herself, it belongs to her husband. Which means that if you are a married person, you are contractually obligated to satisfy your spouse's sexual needs. Because at the end of the day, if you are practicing monogamy, which naturally happens over time, no matter how much a guy is a player, over time he just wants one woman, because running around chasing lots of skirt is just annoying and it's time consuming. So for that reason, that man has forsaken all others. You as a woman have forsaken all other partners. So if the person has committed to you, you should be available sexually to satisfy them. Okay? And one of the reasons why I kind of started doing this video is because Cynthia G recently did a discussion with my other favorite YouTuber, Crystalline Kerrison. And once again, there was this rhetoric about a little bit to do with why are Black men so frustrated with black women expanding their options. Why is it such a bad thing? I had to get my violin out and play it a little bit because black women are so abused and restricted by the big bad black man. Allegedly, recently, Cynthia G said that black men go crazy for white women. And it's like, these things are just not true. The average black man is with black women. So why are you pretending like the average black man is with white women? And what I realized is, like, sometimes they'll do these videos like, this is who these black men are really choosing. And it's like some, huge white woman who's got like whole white babies. And I think to myself, you think you're shaming black men for picking these women, but it's an indictment against the black woman, because pound for pound, with all things being equal, overweight, coming into the relationship with another man's kid, yada yada yada. If he picks a white woman, what does that say about his experience with black women? You're not shaming a black man who picks a white single mother. What you're saying is, despite all of the things that black men complain about, there's still something better there when he goes to a white woman who has all the same negatives. And we all know what it is. Because the guy whose video I watched, he was like, say, for example, as a black man, you approach a black woman and she turns you down. She doesn't just necessarily do it in a nice way. There's some disrespect in there. There's some attitude. It's very animated and loud. He's basically being humiliated. Whereas maybe a non-black woman, she'll be a bit more cordial while she kind of knocks you back. And so the crux of the matter is experience. You have a bad experience with black women, you're not always going to want to date a black woman. If you're a black woman that's had bad experience with black men, you're not always going to want to date a black man. And to be honest with you, if you keep on getting bad experiences with people that look like you, then that's where I'm kind of going with this. One of the things that really grates on me, but I couldn't really put my finger on it with these YouTubers, right, is this fake loyalty to black people. Why don't you just get a white man and go? That's literally, obviously, Crystalline is married to a white man, so she done that. But then all she does is make money talking about black men all day. And it really irritates me. Why don't you just ride off into the sunset with your white hubby and, talk positively about how, I don't know, Cynthia G is more annoying and infuriating than Crystalline in this respect, because she'll be the first to say, I'm pro-black, I'm B1, I don't like the idea of interracial dating. But then out of the other side of your mouth, all you do is throw black men under the bus. Like, why do you keep calling black men dusties? Anytime somebody gets in your chat room and they're like saying something you don't like, you don't even know how to be respectful. Like, I'm watching her video and she's picking things out from under her nails. I'm like, would you sit in front of your boss and while he's talking to you, you pick things out from under your nails? Am I wrong? Like, it's just disrespect. I mean, she did it to a guy, but I think she did it as well. It's just, maybe it's a habit that she has. But I think to myself, why should somebody come on your panel and, all right, I'm playing computer, but you can't see me. And I'm engaging you and I'm looking at the chat room, but I'm not sitting there kind of aloof, just picking the dirt out from under my nails, because I find that more interesting than what the person is trying to say. And I'm just like, wow, why do you even bother? It would be better if you just openly came out and said, I don't like black men and I don't respect them. I would have more respect for Cynthia G if she did that, than to be like, I'm pro-black, I'm B1, I don't like seeing, I don't support interracial dating. I've never dated a white man, but let me tell you why all these black men are dusties. I mean, why don't you just talk out of one side of your mouth and just be honest with yourself? You don't really like black men. You don't really respect them. And it goes back to what you were saying about, hey, Bringing Clarity, how you doing, man? I hope you have a good day. I could never understand why people jump on the fence yet stay in a conversation about that particular group that they left. Exactly. Why are you still, I mean, the thing about it is this: when she did that interview with C Boogie, that Cynthia G, right? She was like, she introduced herself as somebody who breaks down the psychology of dusties. And I did write in the comment section underneath that, or the description, like, number one, why do you call them dusties? And this is going to be a really graphic um this is a really graphic example. But I remember years ago I was talking to somebody and they were saying how in their community they don't really have a lot of sympathy for people who've been victims of sexual assault and things like that, right? And they kind of label them with this, I don't know, like a slur kind of thing. And it was painful because obviously they're victims, so you shouldn't really kind of undermine them. But it's like, it goes back to this conversation about the single mothers. Why do people talk negatively about single mothers? Why do they call them things like bastard baby makers and whelping bastards and things like that? It's because, as we saw in the last video, there are a lot of negative things associated with a culture of single parenthood. And so to discourage that kind of behavior, maybe, things that are not politically correct and not very nice to say were brought into the conversation in order to discourage that kind of behavior, because shaming people was the only way you could kind of deter people from doing certain things. And calling people dusty, I don't even want to, I can't even repeat what the guy said. He's like, um these RBs, these rape bitches, it's like, I'm like, how can you call somebody who's been a victim of assault something like that? But it's like the guys are like, I don't want to go near a chick who's been something through something like that because she's probably messed up in the head. And it's the same thing with like single mothers, it's the same thing with people who come from certain backgrounds. There's unresolved issues in there that ultimately become an issue for everybody if they go unchecked. And with Cynthia G, the way she talks about black men being dusties is kind of like this guy calling women who've been victims of sexual assault rape bitches. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how are you helping the person by labeling them with a derogatory name? You're talking to them, but you're picking dirt from under their nails. If you don't want to dialogue, just don't do the live stream. And if you don't want to talk, just don't open the phone line. Just do a live stream where you don't invite participation, because the thing about it is this, I didn't even the thing about it is this, the guys who are over in that space, I mean, why? I know I don't have the patience for it, and I'm just like, what do you get from this argument? You know where this woman's position is already. You know deep down how she feels about you, no matter what she says. As brothers always say, don't watch what women say, watch what they do. Why are you wasting your time debating Cynthia G on anything when you know she has absolutely no respect for you? And then she doesn't talk to you as a black man. I'm not a fan of the whole king, you know, Hotep talk, but she doesn't even respectfully address you. She's, everybody for her is a dusty. So why would you go over there? I don't even get it. But okay, she's talking to guys, but she doesn't even, you claim to want to understand the psychology of a dusty, but for what? Are you going to help them to be less dusty? No. So what was the point? So anyway, Cynthia G is now having a conversation with Kristen and Kerrison about again, divesting, and people saying how they're trying to pit one another off against each other, and how what was it? There was one video where Cynthia G says allegedly she's being that people are accusing her of brainwashing black women. And I wanted to say, well, what would you call it? You spend all day talking out of both sides of your mouth with this kind of nice, nasty, I'm pro-black, but at the same time, let me just tell you why all these black men ain't ish. I'm just like, why? Why don't you just admit that you don't like black men and just leave them alone and move on with your life, talking about something that actually is going to benefit black people? Because at the end of the day, if you were to get you a white man and do like Robert Smith, who was originally married to a black woman, I'm not necessarily a big proponent of being pro-black and sleeping white, but from an economic standpoint, you actually can do a lot for the black community if you're investing finances. Like if I had to choose between being a business person and a politician, I would pick being a business person, because politicians don't have a lot of freedom when it comes to what they really want to say or do. They have to always be mindful of their image, their party, the voting, blah 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 blah. But an independent business person can just, they can just say what they want and what they care about. You see, a lot of people are angry with Barack Obama because he didn't do a lot for black people. But the reality is this: if he did do a lot for black people, everyone would say, oh, he only did that because he's black. Do you understand? This is why Donald Trump is kind of like a polarizing figure, because at the end of the day, he's a white man who seems to be doing more for black people than a black man did. And that's a bit weird. It seems a bit weird, but it's not weird, because Barack Obama doesn't want to be seen to be biased. But when you're an independent business person, it's okay to be biased. That's your money. You do with it what you like. That's why I respect what Robert Smith did, and I don't respect Jay-Z opening a school for music, because the industry doesn't promote anything to black people that actually helps black people. Um, Bringing clarity to confusion says Cynthia argues against the collective of black men because she can't get the black men she wants. Speaking against black men is Cynthia's defense mechanism to push responsibility off of her. Exactly. At the end of the day, um, at the end of the day, a lot of the women, and this is going back to what Naima said earlier about throwing me off the topic. Cynthia G's platform is geared towards hurt women who basically are bitter and angry with themselves because of the choices that they made. And instead of just coming to the conclusion that these are the men I picked, and just saying, look, I messed up, I dropped the ball, and I've wounded myself because I picked the wrong men, they just, they've gone down this rabbit hole. If Cynthia G just shut down her channel and said, look, I've come to the realization that there's certain things I need to work on. I want to rebrand my channel, pretty it up. We all know what you're saying, but just, do a politician move or something. Went away and came back. A lot of her subs wouldn't even realize that she kind of basically just she just switched up the rhetoric. And with all due respect, like after Chrysalin tried to go on Kevin's show and then backed out, what did she do? Some of the way she rebranded her channel, some of the things she was doing in her live streams with the image, the thumbnails, the sound effects. It was so obvious that she was influenced by the things Kevin did, even though she didn't give him any props for it. Okay, but most of the subs didn't even realize. So she could do that and get away with it. It would be better for her and it would be better for the community. She wouldn't have this cognitive dissonance where she's torn between she's torn between saying she loves black men, but then at the same time doing all kind of things that ultimately hurt black men. So that's the Cynthia G, Kristen and Kerosene rant off my chest. It frustrates me that these people, they continue to just double down on the fact that they have issues with black men, but they don't want to address the root of the problem as to why these men are quote unquote dusty in the first place. They're dusty because they were raised to be dusty. Okay? They didn't just decide to be dusty. They didn't say, you know what, I'd really love to be a bum when I grow up. No, they were failed, and that's just the long and the short of the story. And that's the bit that these girls never seem to address, because at the end of the day, they don't want to seem like they're being critical of women. But without that honest conversation of this is what we can do better, things will never get better. Okay, so that's that bit off my chest, right? So the topic of today's, hopefully quicker, because I don't actually have a lot of links that I'm going to put up, is the benefits of being raised by a single dad. Because I realized there's a number of things that I still want to talk about regarding this concept of being raised by a single parent. And I know that children who are raised by single fathers generally tend to do better than children raised by single mothers. And I just came across this post by a page called The Unstoppable Dad. And I'm just going to run through quickly why. Um, so, I got to scroll. Okay. So, six amazing effects of being raised by a single dad include more focused parenting, improved routine, fewer swings, a stronger emphasis on chores, a clearer separation from friend and parent, and a more carefree attitude. Okay, so that's the crux of the matter. If you want to switch off, you can now because those are the 6 points. I'm joking. Please don't switch off. Um. Oh no. Got off a little bit. Can you see? More focused parenting. Go on, do it. That's it. Okay, so you may be wondering what the word or what in the world is the term focused parenting. It's well documented that men have a natural drive over women in certain areas, especially when it comes to a single task. And a lot of the time, people say that women are amazing because they can multitask. But I think it was actually proven that multitasking is actually less effective than being just focused on a single job at any one time. And you may think you've completed a task, but you haven't. You may do everything average as opposed to doing something exceptionally well. So when it comes to men, a lot of men are criticized by women because they can't do more than one thing at a time. But when it comes to quality versus quantity, you want the quality. And it will feed into the next point that they mentioned here. But being focused is something that you need as a skill because, and this is what all of these points are really emphasizing, because that's what I kind of regret, that I didn't work on myself more to get more skilled up. And I also feel a little bit cheated because, but my mother couldn't give me what she didn't have, is skills. Skills run the world. And for you to be able to be successful in the adult world, you have to be equipped with skills, and you have to be encouraged to increase your skill set, to sharpen and hone your skill set, and to figure out what your niche is so that you can use that skill to make money, um, and be successful in life, not just so that you can have cash, but also so you can have a sense of fulfillment as a person, that your life wasn't just in vain. You actually brought something useful or beneficial to humanity because you had something to offer that maybe no one else had. Again, this is why when we talk about the black girl's low self-esteem and all this not gaslighting, deflection, that it must be just because she's got dark skin, it really winds me up, because no, it's because you were failed. You were failed because the only thing you have to offer is your physical attractiveness maybe, and at the end of the day, if that's not what's being promoted as a standard of beauty, you feel like you have nothing. Anyway, that wasn't what I meant to say, but we're here now. Okay? So multitasking. It's not surprising to learn that as a single dad, once the commitment has been made to focus on the task of raising a child by themselves, that the child itself becomes the focus. And because women often, they're not, I don't want to say they never grow up, but because women can be what is known as solipsistic, they're egocentric, they're very much focused on their own personal needs, the child is just there. The child can take care of themselves, or the child can get on with their homework by themselves. And this is why you have a lot of competition between mothers and children. Whereas with the father, what you often find is they understand the concept of priority. The child becomes the priority, not an extension of themselves. And so once the man has committed to being a father, like a single dad, he's going to always, or in more cases than not, put the needs of the child even before his own. So it says here, of course, there will always be exceptions, as many single moms can raise a child with equal or superior focus. However, averages count, and I feel that single fathers are better at this mentality. Okay. Improved routine. Okay. Routines are very important to children, and structure and routine allow the child to feel secure and safe, knowing that they are being properly raised. In fact, the importance of routines cannot be overstated, as it benefits children in many ways. So this is what I wanted to kind of to talk about. Um, they feel safe and secure. It helps children and teenagers develop a sense of responsibility. It helps them to develop healthy habits like brushing teeth, getting some exercise. How many black people in the black community struggle with weight? Um, this is a habit. Our eating habits are something that are embedded in us through our developmental years. So if you grow up in a household where it's normal to have huge portions, bad food, low quality food, and no exercise, that's what is going to happen as you grow in age. Okay, and other things like good hygiene. That was something that I didn't really touch on in the last video when I mentioned the idea of single mothers and poverty. Okay, even some, even here in the UK, I think, I don't know if I said it, how there's a big drive right now to help girls who can't afford sanitary wear. And it's like, how many girls have issues with their hygiene, or knowing how to do their own hair, knowing how to take care of their body and their physical and their intimate health. It's something that not only needs education, it costs money. How can you be in a developing country and you can't go to school because you can't afford sanitary protection? But it happens. Okay, and when I was growing up, I didn't get pocket money because obviously we couldn't afford it. And so if I wanted anything, whether it was pens or, money to go on a trip, in addition to forging my mother's signature on the consent form, I would have to save up my lunch money. I would walk to school and save my bus fare. And although you learn some valuable lessons through not having everything handed to you on a plate, I think this is partly why a lot of black people, they are literally addicted to struggle, and they're unsympathetic to their children struggling because they went through it, so you can go through it too. And one of the things I always see when I listen to a lot of these conversations, I almost feel like black people in the West almost see struggle as some type of rite of passage. Like you literally just, now you've become a man because you survived to adulthood. Now you become a woman because you survived to adulthood. I went through this, and so can you. And I said this in the previous video about the concept of children being raised behind the eight ball. Like, why is it every other group is like working two jobs and they're marrying well, they're marrying strategically to give their children the leg up that they didn't have, so they don't have to start from ground zero? It's only black people who are like, I'm not putting anything aside for the future. I'm not imparting anything to you. I'm just gonna let you get to 16 or 18 and then send you off because you're legally an adult now, and say go and be great. It's just like, it doesn't work like that. But it seems like only black people don't understand that. Not black people abroad, because I think in developing countries and in maybe West Indies, in parts of Africa, they really value education. But it doesn't seem like Western black people have that consciousness about them, that I just want to spoil you. I just want to give you the world so that you have the ability to pick whatever you want to pick, and you're not starting from like, at least the foundation has been laid. Let me say it like that. I've already started something for you to build upon. Like, black people don't even do that sometimes. And it may just be something as simple as a mindset that, again, going back to the esteem. How can you have good self esteem as a black woman if you're always poor? You're always struggling. You grow up in a household where you can't even have, the basics that you need for school. You don't have a new pair of shoes, or you don't have the right equipment, or every time there's a school trip you can't afford to go or something. All these things play a factor in the so-called low self-esteem of the dark-skinned black women, because of the choices a lot of our parents made. And again, when you have people like Crystalline and Chrissy, and Chrissy will touch on it a bit, credit where credit's due, but she always flips it around somehow to still being the black man's fault, which I get really fed up with, because you're not doing anybody in the black community a favor when you're constantly deflecting. You can't fix a problem until you at first acknowledge that there's a problem and that you kind of own your part in that problem. And all these excuses, all they do is they help to keep black people suppressed, because black women are the first teachers. They are the first example, they're the first caregivers. So um reduces stress. The importance of routine, the last point, reduces stress levels because things are predictable and organized. So comparing and contrasting, a father and a single mother, what was the main thing here? It was the concept of instability. Instability is traumatizing. When you don't know if you're going to eat, if you don't know when the next meal is coming, if you have parents who are constantly telling you about bills that can't be paid, they're putting adult responsibilities on you and things like this, all of that contributes to a child's stress level. And one thing, the reason why mental health problems for Black people in the West are so prevalent is because we don't have extended families, we can't live off the land, we don't have good food, we don't often have good weather, but also there is a lot of stress, whether it's stress from racism and discrimination, or stress within our own homes. Post traumatic stress is not just something you experience when you go to war, it's something you experience when you're constantly under pressure. And finances, um, trauma, poverty, these things lead to mental health problems because of the stress that they cause in the lives of in the lives of all of us as Black people in the West. So feeling safe and secure, the top one. A routine helps a child to know you care. A lot of people think children don't like being disciplined and told no, but actually, they understand that you care enough about them to stop them from doing certain things that could be harmful. This is why when parents are negligent, the children often act out in more and more deviant ways or delinquent ways. It's an attention grab because they want to know, do you actually care enough about me to stop me from doing something that could be harmful? Okay, routines help children to feel secure because of point number four, predictability. Children want to know what's going to happen, and it helps them to get prepared for adult life where there's routine. The reason why Black people are unsuccessful in the workplace and in school is because so many of us are raised in environments where there's no such thing as a routine, and understanding that there's an expectation of you to perform at a certain time at a certain level. you know and I'm not throwing my mother under the bus. I'm just using her as an example because a lot of times people will say, well, who are you to criticize Black women? But I was raised by one, and I can speak not just from my own personal experience, because I don't really like that, but also because a lot of people undermine what Black men say about Black women, as if the reason why they're saying it is just because they inherently hate Black women. So if you're a Black woman who's been through these things at the hands of other Black women, then what's your argument? Okay. And I didn't see my mother for days because she's working, she's studying, and in those days, there wasn't a lot of transportation around. It was expensive. If you wanted to keep travel costs low, you would have to take the cheapest form of travel, which would be the bus. So she would leave out early in the morning, and by the time she came home, I'd be asleep. So I only knew she'd been in the house because food and notes appeared. Food and notes appeared. You wake up and there's something cooking, or you wake up and there's something's appeared, or there's an instruction, do this, do that, pick this up for me, and that was it. But literally for days, I didn't see her. I mean, there was one time when she didn't even tell me she was doing a night shift, and I'm looking at the clock at like 11, 12 o'clock, and she still hasn't appeared. And so on the one hand, it's great kind of being like Macaulay Culkin Home Alone, but on the flip side, what kind of structure and routine did that impart to me? None, because unless I discipline myself, which a child often is not going to do, you know, what how am I supposed to develop as a person understanding the rules of the world when I'm being left to my own devices for days at a time? And I don't think that's that uncommon. Being a latchkey kid, coming home to an empty house, having to sort yourself out and just doing whatever, you know. I haven't got a criminal record, even though I watch more than 6 hours of TV a day sometimes. But that's what my criminal record says. And I will just leave that conversation there. Okay? So it helps children to develop a sense of responsibility. Why? Because of accountability. Again, what's the biggest complaint black men have? Black women are not accountable. Why are black women not accountable? Because they grew up in a household where they didn't have to be. There was nobody to answer to. But a dad will make you answer. He's not playing that game, okay? And then obviously men are more structured, so they're going to help you to develop certain habits. And we are, and our life is a collection of our habits. So routine is also important because it teaches kids the importance of responsibilities around the house, especially when it comes to chores. By designating routine chores, it helps children to feel a sense of work and accomplishment, despite the fact that they may complain about it from time to time. And this is something else I think I forgot to mention in the last video. When you grow up in poverty, you have to resort to physical punishment because you cannot discipline a child after a certain point with just verbal, ear bashing. And what happens is, as the mother realizes she's losing control over the children because she cannot overpower them just physically based on sheer size, what she will then do is more extreme forms of physical punishment. So the resentment builds up because the child is like, you're always beating me, you're always shouting at me, even though that's not true, because no parent is really going to shout and beat their children nonstop 24/7. But the overarching feeling in that relationship is, all I experience from this person is shouting and beats, shouting and beats. When you have money, you can give children things that you can then take away. So they feel that punishment more because you're restricting them from something that they really, really want. Okay, so again, why is poverty a problem when it comes to parenting? Because you cannot say, well, if you're not going to do this, you're not going on that trip, or I'm going to take your PlayStation away, because probably those things are not even on the table in the first place. So chores, at the end of the day, most people are going to be employed. So you're going to have to do what? Work. You're working to earn money. Chores are a way to teach responsibility because you can reward them with extra pocket money. Again, if you're in poverty, you probably can't afford to give the children pocket money. So it's like a double whammy when it comes to negativity. Poverty and irresponsibility just set the child up for a fall. And this is why a lot of black people, I think, they struggle with routine, they struggle with the workplace, education and things like that, because they're raised in an environment where they're not rewarded. There's no sense of self-worth, and there's no looking forward to completing a task and receiving that reward. Because some people will say, well, you go to work and you sign a contract, you get paid. But even the boss knows, if I want my employees to do well, I need to incentivize them. Friday night will be beer and pizza night. We're going to go to karaoke. I know Naima likes a bit of karaoke. We're going to have dress down day. On Christmas, we're going to have ugly Christmas jumper day. They find ways to make you enjoy coming to work so that you're more productive. And it's exactly the same with a child. If you don't incentivize that child to want to work, they become lazy because they don't see the benefit in working if all they get is ignored. Okay, you got a good grade. So what are you going to give me for putting in the effort for the grade? Well, don't you know you're going to get an opportunity to go to college? Yeah, but what do I get right now? you know, and in poverty, and if you're not teaching that kind of work ethic, people become lazy and they fall behind, and then they become dusties. Shout out to Cynthia G. Fewer mood swings. Okay, what do we know about women? Women are more emotional. Okay, and children learn how to behave by the example that's set for them. So if you have a very emotional parent, you're going to pick up that habit of being an emotional person. And this is why, again, we have a lot of black men who are not able to control their emotions, or they process their world through a female mindset. They react instead of respond. They feel the need to I don't know, to go back and forth, as it were. And that's a very feminine trait. But it's because they're groomed by females. And so it says here, most of you reading this post know, whether you care to admit it or not, that a huge difference between the sexes is that there is an emotional component that differentiates men from women. Let's face it, men tend to be more level headed on average versus women. And if you factor in the time of the month, men win hands down. Okay, we know that. You know, PMT is a real thing where you feel more maybe lethargic, maybe you feel more stressed and tension. And that's just something men don't go through. Stoicism is part of masculinity. It doesn't mean men are emotionless. It means that they know how to appropriately use their emotions. And in certain times they just go quiet. Okay? Again, children need to understand that not everything, and I think that's point number 3 coming up. How to cope with pain. I don't think that's something men want to know. Okay, that thing is not on the screen. Um, at the end of the day, women just tend to be more subjective. Women tend to be more emotional and erratic. They process things through their own personal thoughts and feelings. This is one of the reasons why I don't enjoy watching a lot of female content creators, with all due respect, because they always try to take individual situations and then extend them out to the wider community. My personal experience is this, therefore, this must be what everyone's experience is, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. So it becomes frustrating because it doesn't matter what your personal experience is and how much you may be the exception to the rule. We've got to talk about the rule, not the exception. And men are just more objective thinkers. Again, when it comes to skills, being objective, prioritizing, being level headed, controlling your emotions are skills. And that's what's going to ultimately help you to be successful when you go out into the world of work or education. Remember, a significant number of children raised by single parents, but I can't remember if it's single parents or single mothers, drop out of school. This has something to do with it. Commitment to task, looking forward to completing the task to gain a reward, and an additional reward, bonuses and extras on top for doing a good job. In a situation where there's poverty and you have a negligent parent, that drive is not going to be there. Okay, the next one, a stronger emphasis on chores. Chores are an important component in the overall development of a child. And if you're not familiar with the benefits of chores and how they positively impact children, they've put a list here. Okay, so chores help to teach life skills, they help to teach teamwork, and they build work ethic. The same thing that I said already. Okay, it's crucial, and without this reinforcement, a child has a stronger possibility of veering down the wrong path. You know, we all know there's a saying, the devil gives work to idle hands. When children don't have things that are good and stimulating and distracting them from negativity, they're automatically going to be given negativity because it's around them, whether it's through friends, whether it's through family members or the media. They're going to be influenced all the time. Now, um, a dad is going to, one of the things that I know about fathers is fathers play with children in a different way. And I don't know if I have, um, okay, there's something that I'm going to touch on afterwards. You know, there's something that dads do in terms of the way they play with a child. A dad is more likely to engage a child face to face and hands on. And this is very important because the father will guide the child through a task, as opposed to a woman who will give the child the task but not guide them through. So children who raised often with single mothers, they can become discouraged because they feel abandoned in the middle of the task. Whereas fathers, they will take the child to the side, and whether it's tinkering in the car, or doing the lawn, or painting, or whatever it is the dad is doing, the child and the father are together. And that, it's just like, if you've ever studied, sometimes your friend can't help you study or prepare for an exam, but just their mere presence, being there sitting up with you while you try to finish that assignment, it motivates you just to keep going. They're not doing anything, maybe they're just talking to you, or while you're working there on the phone, but just the company, the companionship, it drives you on. And when you're given a task but you're abandoned in the middle, you just feel like, I can't do this, I'm on my own. And this is demotivating. So the way fathers are, in the terms of the way they're hands on, it actually helps children to develop this idea that if I'm going through something, somebody is going to be there for me. They're going to support me. I'm not in this on my own. Okay, you cannot ignore the fact that children are more scared easily by men than women. And this fear component in itself is a strong motivator for kids to complete the task. Okay, and this is what I said earlier, because a child reaches a certain age where they know, I know I'm younger than you, but I can take you as a woman, male or female. That child will start to bark. So what does the woman do? She stops verbally scolding you. She starts smacking. Once the smacking doesn't work, it starts to get to extreme beating. Once the beating doesn't work, now we've got to bring an object, a slipper, a belt, and before you know it, that child is being abused. But the mere fact that that deep voice and that big scary man is standing there, even when the child doesn't want to do it, they know daddy means business. Okay? So when Cynthia G did that interview with C Boogie, and she was like, I'm kind of downplaying marriage and why you need a father in the home. This is why. Because as the woman, all you should be saying is, okay, wait till your father gets home. I'm going to tell you. In fact, I'm going to call him right now. That child is like quaking. And they're, all right, I'll do it. Because they know, even if I can't, even if I could take my mom, when the two gang up together and my dad's alone, he only has to tell me once. Okay, in the end, a mother is more likely to yell, get frustrated, and getting frustrated is a sign of a loss of control. The child knows they have you on the back foot because you are now getting flustered. So they're like, ha ha ha, I'm winning. I just need to push you a bit further, and either you're going to just blow up, you're going to beat me, but the beating's going to wear off, or you're just going to just give up and I'm going to get away with it. The father, no. And either they yell, get frustrated, and either do to them what? Do them to get it over out of the way, or make excuses not to reinforce them. I don't know what that is, but I think he's talking about the threat. A lot of the time, a woman will say she's going to do something, but she never really does it. Or she's like, oh, I'm going to beat you. Okay, you beat me, and now what? The beating's called off, and I'm still going to go back and do what I want. So again, that rebelliousness, it comes from a lack of fear growing up, because the people who are supposed to have authority over you, you can actually overpower them. And then you take that disrespectful mindset into adulthood. Okay? A clearer separation from a friend to parent. In the last video, I talked about the concept of women often seeing children as an extension of themselves. And one of the things that it mentioned was codependency. It didn't say that, but that's what it is, where parents will take children and give them adult responsibilities, sitting down with them, discussing the finances in a way that puts pressure on a child, talking about your relationships with your kids, talking about your boyfriend with your kids, exposing them, to partners when there's no commitment, things like this. they make the child more of a friend, and the differentiation between parent and child is not clearly delineated. Hey Complex, how you doing? We've got a manosphere heavyweight in the building. Shout out to you. Welcome. But when it comes on to a father understands that it's important to differentiate between the role of a parent and a child. And again, there's hierarchy, there's order, there has to be discipline, and that's something that women just don't get, because women kind of have a hive mind group think mentality. So what actually happens is a mother is more likely to see a child as a friend, whereas a father is more likely to just say, this is my role, this is my place, this is your place, know your place. And although the child may again buck against that, like I wanna run before my time, the father's gonna say no. This is where you're at, this is where you need to operate, and when you're ready, you move forward. It's you see, femininity and the female nature, it's a fine line between being helpful and being harmful. Nurturing somebody is good when they need to be nurtured, but when you go beyond when they need it, you're now coddling and stifling. You're killing that competitiveness, you're killing that drive. And again, making excuses for somebody, at times they need to be protected and shielded. But if you keep doing it, you take away their ability to be accountable and reflective upon themselves. So the father's balance of, no, I said he has to come in at this time and I'm locking the door, and I don't want you to go down while I'm asleep and unlock the back door and let them in. There has to be that balance between the nurture and the discipline. And in single parent households, especially single mother households, you often don't have a good enough balance. But if you had to choose between discipline and nurture, disciplining is better than the nurture, because no one's going to make excuses for you when you go out into the adult world. So it says here, the issue, as I've observed, is that many mothers try to gain acceptance of their children as opposed to standing firm and drawing a line between parent and friend. Most of the time, this stems from the inability to control their child, mainly their sons. So they pamper and otherwise turn them into friends. And a lot of people don't like to admit this, but when the woman, remember we said in the last video, they become, when the mother is doesn't have a mate, she turns to the children for loneliness. But what often happens is the son becomes the husband. You're the little man now. You're the man of the house now, dressing him up a certain way. Da 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 da. And she's almost trying to fashion the son into a mini husband. Okay, and that's problematic, because now you're putting again adult responsibilities on a child. Okay. As the male matures in age, it also is not uncommon for them to continue building the friendship by revealing secrets and venting their frustration about things, most things personal in their lives, such as dating, girls' nights out, and other related areas that they should have kept private. I mean, I haven't read this. I just looked at the headings, but as you can see, this is what black men talk about all the time. Their mothers turning them into husbands, telling them things they shouldn't know, showing them things they shouldn't see. Look, if you're a parent, be a hypocrite. I know that sounds a son husband, and the opposite is when you have a man and he's your, like a little boy. That's your Hobson. But yeah, your son husband, and it's a little bit incestuous. It's a little bit creepy, but it's also unfair, because you're forcing that child to be an adult before it's their time. Okay, and a lot of black men, they complain about this. One of the things that we talked about in the last video was the idea of children who grow up in single parent households drop out of school. One of the reasons is because they feel like they should start working to help support financially. So, and it says here in the next statement, fathers on the other hand have a better grasp on this area, revealing only what needs to be revealed, serving only to help the child mature into a better man. And daughters, well, most single dads will always treat them like a princess, which is a fault on its own. Okay, because obviously not every man's going to do that. But again, when we're talking about why do black women have low self-esteem, fatherlessness is a big problem because they haven't satisfied that drive to be seen as the princess. They haven't have, like, when you're a small child, you need to have a period of time where you are unashamedly, unabashed, the center of everyone's attention. Once that need is met, it's kind of like a toy or a game. One day you just wake up and you just don't need it. But when you see a lot of these adults who are very clingy, very how can I say, they're just attention thirsty. They do all kinds of things, even sabotaging themselves just to draw you in. This is part of the narcissistic personality. They do things that are self sabotaging in order to be victims so that you can come running to their rescue. And they need attention, so they do things to garner it through bad behavior, whether it's blowing up or getting into certain situations. That's what it is. That's why narcissism is increasing. Selfishness and all kind of strange behaviors are going up because people come from households like the one we talked about in the last video, which is rife with dysfunction, a lot of neglect. Okay, and I'm gonna talk about just quickly. When I say quickly, I mean like another 45 minutes. Okay, so bottom line, both sexes are guilty. However, mothers tend to rely mostly on emotional impulses, whereas men rely mainly on logic and they tend to be more private. This is why when you have women saying we need men to be more emotional and open up and talk about their feelings, there's a time and a place for everything. And there's certain things kids do not need to know. If you like to just hoe it up at the weekend, your kids should think that you are the Virgin Mary, and even they themselves they just were brought by the stork. And when they go to their dad, you do your thing, you wipe your face off, and you come back and you look like holier than thou. Although being a hypocrite is not a good thing, it's better to be a hypocrite and protect your child's innocence, protect your children from certain things they don't need to see, than it is to try to be a friend on a level. Because what ultimately happens is, as the child grows, they just lose respect for you. And that's where, again, you need to discipline more harshly, and they lose more respect for you, and it becomes a vicious cycle, and you've lost them. Protecting them from things they don't need to know helps to maintain respect so that you don't have to go down the ultra discipline route. Okay? I don't know which one we're on now, but it says dads tend not to sweat the small stuff. This goes back to the first one about prioritizing. Men just want an easy, peaceful life. And if it means that tonight we're getting pizza instead of a home cooked meal, so be it. But women have to find problems to give men opportunities to fix them. That's part of the intersexual dynamics between men and women. I'm not going to complain about women finding problems, but sometimes it gets too much. The nagging, the complaining, the constant criticizing, it's mental and emotional abuse, and it's draining. There's a scripture in the Bible, it says, fathers, what does it say? Fathers, I need to find it. Fathers, let me see if I can find it. I hope everyone's having your. Okay, let me type it like this. Because I want to quote it correctly, lest they become discouraged. Let me see if I can find the scripture. Colossians 3:21. It says, fathers, provoke not your children lest they become discouraged. And if you read through the various parallel verses, it says, embittered, provoke, exasperate, aggravate. What does this mean? As a parent, you can drain your own kids. You can literally kill their confidence, their sense of self esteem, their sense of self worth with constant criticism, nitpicking at their looks, nitpicking at their performance. They do well in a test or they've made improvement. Instead of focusing on the positive, you highlight the one negative. Again, we have a lot of black women online complaining about self esteem of black women, But this is why a lot of black women have low self-esteem, because they come from households where the demands were often very high, and there's nothing wrong with having high expectations of your kids if they can meet them. But in addition to the expectation is the support there. So you're exasperating these children by pressuring them, complaining, nitpicking, critiquing all the time, and that gives them a complex. And that wasn't because complex is in the chat, but that's what we call it. It's a complex. People develop all kind of hang-ups about themselves, but those insecurities are often embedded by the things that the people we care about growing up said to us. You know, problem solving doesn't have to involve nagging. Exactly, it has to be supportive. And a lot of the times, what we were talking about in the last video was single mothers versus widows, is called. You know, women often think that nagging does solve something because they're getting it off their chest so they feel better, but you're emotionally dumping on somebody else. You're not supporting them through the task, you're draining them. And it says here, I need peace. I think a lot. Yeah. You know, you have to understand that like people do need periods of just quiet where they shut off the computer, they shut off the phone, and they just go and maybe lie down in the park or something and gather their thoughts. That's why sleep is so important, because it's an opportunity for your body to just shut down and all those thoughts to be processed. And if you're in a household that's chaotic, you're constantly under stress. So I was going to say something, but I think I forgot what it was. But it's just basically women need to understand that you can exasperate your own children to the point. And what hurt me is it says, or they will become discouraged. What's that? Depressed, deject. They'll turn in on themselves. They become discouraged to push for success in their own life, and then that carries forward into adulthood where they're failing, and then they become dusty. You know, I can't stand this word dusty. It doesn't make any sense to say you care about these men being dusty, but you don't address all these issues, why they became quote unquote dusty in the first place. So it says here, it's no secret that one of the difference between being raised by a single dad opposed to a single mom is that men in general will not sweat small things. It's largely due to the respect a male receives over a female when it comes to parenting. If you have ever seen the old show Wait Until Your Father Gets Home, it illustrates beautifully how a mother is having difficulty coping with her children and has to threaten them with their father when he gets home if they don't start behaving. For obvious reasons, many mothers will never admit this, even if their life depended on it. But the fact remains that the dad has more fearful presence, and no amount of excuse making and justifications will change this fact. Okay. The other thing here is children need to understand that not everything is big, and this is why we have a lot of emotional black men out here, because they grow in an environment where black women overemphasize the importance of small things that are insignificant, and the things that we really need to be talking about a lot of times we're not. Colorism exists, texturism exists, featureism exists, racism exists, feminism or what misogyny exists. They all exist. But let's be real, are those the things that are really holding the black community back the most? Not really. But yet, you know, do a channel about installing a lace front weave, how to get bundles cheap, how to, you know, apply 5 kilos of makeup so you look like a different person. Those channels have hundreds of thousands of subs. And I'm not hating on those channels, because if you're going to pick a content, you know, a content that changes people's lives or could change the trajectory of somebody's life is a big responsibility. That's what I'm saying. When it comes on to the stats and the stuff I'm showing, go and do your own research so that you can be sure that what I'm saying is actually accurate. But in terms of just making content that's entertaining, that's different to changing somebody's life through their perception of the world. And that's why I have a huge problem with these colorism platforms, because they are influencing people on the decisions that really matter. Who you date, who you have children with, your finances, the way you take care of your body, those are huge factors. Okay, so what am I doing? Okay. So that's the conclusion of that one. Okay, so 20 reasons why dads are so important. Okay, I'm just going to run through the list, but I'm not going to elaborate on them, because I think by now we get the picture that it's important to understand why, when somebody like Cynthia G turns around and says, I don't understand the importance of a father, it's like, wow, if you're watching, okay, let me not say that. I was going to, well, let me just keep my mouth shut. let me just not go there. Where is it? Oh my gosh, what did you just do? Um so how's everyone doing? A lot of content creators do not have noble intentions. How long have I been on YouTube? Since the beginning of the year. I'll do this one first. How long have you been on YouTube? Probably since about maybe the end of last year. My first video was during the time with April Mason and the whole my cousin nearly got kidnapped. I was so disappointed when she came out and made that video about how where are all the good black men, because I was just like, wow. I I just I wouldn't say I lost a little bit of respect for her, but I was disappointed because I couldn't believe that she really got caught up in that rhetoric. And Complex says a lot of content creators do not have noble intentions for the content they create. And it's so funny you say that, because I was actually thinking that earlier today. And it's something that really, I'm not going to knock anyone's hustle. You can make the content you want because that's why you started a channel, and that's your right. You have the right to make whatever content you want to make. I have the right not to watch it. So why am I complaining when I can just not watch? But a lot of the guys who make content, the goal is the conversation needs to move forward sometimes, and we need to start strategizing in the real world, because it's great to trash out these ideas, because every day there's new people coming through who haven't heard these concepts. But beyond talking, what kind of practical things can we do? I know there's not much I can do in the physical world, because of finances and my time or whatever. But if I can make a video and bless somebody, maybe I can just do a token. I can make a leaflet. I can recommend a channel. It's every little bit helps. But we all can do something in the physical that's going to help somebody in the real world. And a lot of content creators, it's great to have a popping channel where you get a lot of eyes. But beyond getting the views, the clicks, the likes, and your paycheck, where is this thing actually going? I'm trying to find a video. Complex. You have to tell me how much your rates are for IT training, because if I can turn on a laptop, I feel like I've done something. Everybody who's here knows that. Oh my gosh, this chick is rubbish on the computer. Oh, here we go. I'm trying to make it bigger. Oh, okay. It's like, I hate when they put this thing on the screen about cookies, as if you really have a choice. Like, we're not going to let you look at the content unless you agree to the cookies. So, oh my God. Okay. So it's like a catch-22, accept our cookies or else. So a lot of people, they like to downplay the impact of having a dad in the home. So let's just have a quick run through, and we kind of elaborated on some of them already. What does it say? Get rid of my big head. There we go. Okay, so children benefit from having two parents in their lives, whether their dad is still in the family home or whether their parents are separated. Dads have a unique role to play in parenting their children. I'm going to say from the outset, mums are great. You didn't need to add that bit. But you've always got to pander to the gynocracy. You've always got to, you know, stroke the ego of the woman, even though, this is about men. However, there are many benefits of having a dad actively involved in a child's life. It's worth looking at the benefits and remembering why it's good for children to spend regular time with their father. Shout out to Complex, because I know he's a single dad doing a great job. So this one is for you. Free of charge, we give out IT. Well, I see the F word. Free. Well, free of charge, we give it out IT help all the time on the Black Brain Trust. Yeah, I do pass through every now and then. I haven't watched recently, but I used to watch a lot back in the day. So, and you guys are doing an awesome job. And I've said this before, and I say it again. I really appreciate the fact that Black men did consistently work hard to make the manosphere. Because despite what people say about, oh, you guys are this and that, you hate women, and blah blah blah, you got mommy issues. The fact still remains that, you know, batons are being passed from one set of content creator to the next, and they are making a difference because people are learning and growing. And you can't save everybody. It would be unrealistic to think that you could, but they're definitely, you guys have done a great job, and it's opened our eyes to a lot of things. So we really appreciate all the hard work that you guys have put in. So it says parent for success. Dads are fun. Dads play differently with children, using more physical and vigorous play. They're bigger, they have more energy, they're more physical, they have more physical contact and spend a longer proportion of their time playing. The way dads play with their children enhances their coordination and their ability to regulate their own strength. Again, if you've got a mother and you can overpower her, you're going to think it's okay to try and use full force on her. But a father will check you. This is why a lot of men, it's not that they're weak, they understand the strength of a man because they've gone toe to toe with other men. Okay? For balance, children benefit from having two parents who have different opinions and personalities. Having parents with different strengths, weaknesses, and points of view helps children to be more rounded. Understanding of men. Oh my gosh, this is the big one. It should have been number one for Black women. You cannot understand men unless you've lived with a man. Okay, and so children can only experience maleness from seeing male role models, and your child's dad is ideally suited to be that role model. Children identify with the same sex parent. So if you are a son growing up in a household, you're welcome, Complex. Children growing up in a household with no father, the daughter doesn't understand what it means to live with a man, and the boy doesn't understand what it's like to be a man. He doesn't have a point of reference for being a father or a husband. This is why a lot of men are shying away from commitment. They don't want to get married. They don't want to settle down. Part of that is fear of failure, because they identify with their father, who either was absent or like he wasn't a good father and a good role model. And if you have a mother on top who's like you're just like your father, the fear of hurting their own children the way their father hurt them makes them refrain from commitment. So it's not enough to just shame them and say, well, you've got mommy issues. Okay. It's important to understand that these men have been through a lot because of the way that they were groomed in their upbringing. So again, when we talk about why is it important to discourage baby mama culture, you won't have as many eligible men out here if you don't have fathers in the home in the first place. This is especially important for boys after the age of 6. This could be the male tendencies to protect, provide, and educate. This is a big one. It gets on my nerves so much. Every time I see a Black woman use the word protect, I feel like I'm just going to put my fist through the screen, and I have, no one judge me for my anger problems, okay? I'll punch you in the face. I'm joking. But this could be the male tendencies to protect. Oh, Black men don't protect us. Why? Because your mother was, knocking you into next week. So you don't look at a woman as a creature in need of protection. You look at yourself as somebody needing to be protected from her. She's telling you, I've got it. I'm strong and independent. I don't need any help. Then obviously Black men are not raised to see females as people in need of protection. Providers. You grow up in a household where your mother's the provider. You, as the boy, get used to being taken care of by women. You get used to be taking care of women, and this goes back to what Complex said about the husband. You know, the husband's son. First off, you start off as the son who becomes the husband, but then in later life, when you're supposed to be the husband, you become the son again. Okay, so it all ties into the upbringing. So when you have women out here talking about, grown men who are dusty, they're being disingenuous. Okay, and showing children that real men can be independent, do housework, and hug and kiss their children too. They see how men dress differently, eat differently, and grow stubble on their chins. Which reminds me, I'm joking. That's what Saturdays are for. Um, for behavior. Research shows that children with good enough dads, and this is what we're saying. There's no guidebook to being a parent. We all know that parents did the best they could, yada yada yada. They made the best of what they had, and most black people do not do things like go to therapy, get books on parenting, go to websites about how to be good parents. They just do whatever they saw their parents doing. And I'm sure a lot of people do that as well, but culturally I think there are a lot of issues with black people in the West that make it harder for black women to see that they need to get additional support. Whereas I think, like in the black community, you'd be shamed for saying, I had to get a book on parenting. They'll be like, oh, and this is something else, and I'm digressing. I think saying to women that being a parent or being a mother is one of the most natural things in the world is actually harmful. And there's a lot of things that I'm just like, I'm on the fence, and, I don't know how I feel about that. But this is definitely one statement I don't think that black people or any person should say. Because if you haven't come from a stable, loving family, being a good parent will not be that natural. The evidence is in the black community that my mama did it like this, my mama's mama did it like this, my grandmother's mother did it like this, and it's like we're failing and it's not working. Okay, and there are some people who don't want to be parents, and that's fine. Not every woman does, no big deal. And not every woman is going to just naturally be able to be a good mom because she's got a vajayjay. Okay, so whereas there's shame and stigma in the black community for saying I went to classes or I bought a book, in other cultures people praise you for wanting to be the best mom you possibly can. And so it's important for parents to understand that you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be striving to at least be good. And it says research shows that children with good enough dads in their lives are more likely to behave well. Dads often have more of a role as a disciplinarian, and as long as the discipline is firm and fair, children thrive. Whereas moms tend to adjust the discipline to the child's state of mind, dads are more predictable and consistent. So again, it's that subjective thinking. For their education, dads tend to have a strong interest in their child's education. Children statistically get better results at school when they see their dads regularly. Dads teach their children the importance of education, how to be successful. In fact, one of the most important factors in how well girls achieve academically is their father's belief in them. Again, it's a self-esteem thing. It's the non-sexual attention that a father gives a child. A daughter validates her, it increases her sense of self-worth, and it helps her to understand that she's important, that she doesn't have to settle for low-grade men because that's not the way she views herself, because of the way the father viewed her. A lot of the low self-esteem and issues that black women have is because they didn't get that non-sexual male attention by having a father in their life. Okay, so you know it's so important for daughters to have men around them who are not trying to sleep with them. Again, we touched in this before. Why are daughters or girls of children of single parent households more likely to be teen parents? Part of that is because they're looking for love, acceptance, and validation. And when a girl hits puberty and she starts to develop into a woman physically, she gets a lot of sexual attention, which she thinks she can trade off into romance, love, and actual, genuine care. And it doesn't, because the guys who are approaching her are only approaching her from a sexual standpoint. So she thinks if I'm sexually active, I can then turn that into love. And then before you know it, that's a baby. So this is one of the reasons why children of single parents are more prone to becoming single parents themselves. Okay. In fact, one of the most important factors in how well girls achieve is their father's belief in them. And when the fathers are involved in their education, children are more likely to get A's, enjoy school, and join in with extracurricular activities. Children, there's a thing on the screen, I can't see what it says. Children with an actively involved dad score higher on tests of verbal and mathematical ability and show greater problem solving abilities and social skills. Okay, again, why are children with dads more likely to have extracurricular activities? Because dads on average tend to work in jobs that pay more money. And so the father can afford to, whether he's the single parent or whether he's an involved parent or in the home. Money makes the world go round, kind of. For friendship, children who have involved dads are more likely to grow up with better social skills, have stronger and closer friendships, and with less conflict. Because dads are less likely than mums to be swayed by their children's wants, children who have dads around them have better understanding of give and take. They're more able to take turns with other children. For their mental health, children who have actively involved dads have lower incidence of depression, suicide, and self-harm. Why? Because as we talked about in the scripture, it says, do not keep on nagging the children because they become discouraged. And we said in the last video that children who grow up in single parent households are more likely to contemplate suicide. Why? Because the emotional state of the child is under constant pressure and they just can't take it. Self-harm and other mental health problems, i.e., why are all these black women so crazy? Is this that tumultuous, dysfunctional environment? It just breaks down your psyche. You're wondering when this woman is going to fly off the handle and go over the top and all this kind of stuff. It just puts you on edge. And that's why a lot of these women that you see out here, they're broken. Sounds harsh to say, but they're broken by their own mothers. But because we're so used to not saying this, because we have to protect the ego of the woman, this is why it goes unchecked for so long. It's a major complex. It's a major part of a father imprinting his daughter. What the father tells the daughter from a male perspective and a protective perspective is so important. And a lot of women, they just don't have that growing up, but they don't understand the importance of it. For self-esteem, a dad's time and attention is a big factor in how children think about themselves. Spending time with a dad can boost a child's sense of their own worth. The more dads interact with their kids, the more of an influence they have. So it goes back to play. Whereas a mother is likely to give a child a laptop or a tablet or a game and let them go off on their own, the father will engage them face to face. Conversely, when children do not have a dad around, they suffer from guilt, upset, and self-doubt even into adulthood. More confidence and strength. I did a whole video called Mothers Emasculate, Fathers Empower. If you haven't watched it, please check it out. And it's because as I was going down the street, I think it was I don't even know what was on the other side. I think it was a wall. And I think it's a train track. And as I've told people before, I grew up in care. I grew up with a foster family. For the first nearly 10 years of my life, 9 years of my life, I grew up with white people, right? And I can remember there was a bridge over the train tracks, and I wanted to climb on the bridge, and my dad let me, but he held my hand and guided me. And I'll never forget, there was one time we were riding on one of these old school trains, the steam trains, and I didn't know that you shouldn't stick your head out of the window. He pulled me in, and then a train came in the other direction. And I was like, I could have just died. But he understood the risk of sticking your head out. That's why he was looking, because I didn't hear it and I didn't see it. But all I knew is as my head came in, that was the train. Okay. But fathers, they will guide you through even dangerous situations, which gives you confidence to take risks. And again, life is about risks. Trying to study, trying to start a business, trying to get a contract or something, it's a risk. And if you have a strong fear of failure because your sense of self-worth and sense of self-confidence is so low, you're not going to thrive. So a father, is going to give you that confidence that you can do it. And even if you fail, I still love you. I still care about you. I'm here and I'll help you through. Children tend to be more resilient and more confident when their dads are actively involved in their lives. Dads tend to instill more of a sense of adventure. And that's what adult life is. Complex says we watch our children like hawks. Yeah, you do watch them like a hawk, but you watch them like a hawk because you want them to thrive. You want them to do well, and you're looking out for the pitfall and the danger. And the thing about it is this: being there as a father is a protective measure. Okay. But the a man and a woman protects a child in a different way. Women often protect from the standpoint of fear, and what they do is instill in their children a lot of fears. Whereas dads protect from a sense of logic and avoiding the risk to maximize whatever you're trying to attempt to do. And that builds confidence, which is why it says his dads tend to instill more of a sense of adventure, as opposed to fear. For their future relationships with partner, children who have good relationships with their dads and their moms are more likely to have good relationships with their partners when they're older. In addition, dads teach their sons how to treat women. We're sick and tired of all these black men beating us and leaving us with babies, and they treat us like crap and blah. Well, that's because they grew up in a household without a father who didn't model to them how to respect women, how to control a household, how to lead without being overbearing or abusive. They grew up in a household with a controlling mother, which is something a lot of serial killers have. They found that a decent portion, and I think it's like 40%, maybe 50%, there's a correlation at least between an overbearing mother and a weak father when it comes on to serial killers. And not all guys who grow up in this household dynamic become serial killers, but they definitely become more prone to being abusive to women because the resentment that they have for their mother becomes projected onto all women. Okay, dads teach their sons how to treat women, and they teach their daughters how to expect to be treated. Okay, for their best chance of stable relationships, children benefit from seeing good relationships themselves. If parents are split up, the next best thing is to see their parents communicating well and having a good relationship. Children learn so much from seeing firsthand loving relationships. For understanding the role of a dad, children watch their dads to learn about what that role involves. If children have an active, involved boys learn to be dads. I said that already when they're older, and girls are more likely to choose men who is likely to be a good father. This is why Cynthia G and her cohort are always complaining. Did Cynthia G have a dad? And that's not, I mean, I'm being feisty, but I'm facetious, but I'm also being true. Did she have a father? A lot of black men, they say things like, we don't really want to date women who have poor relationships with their fathers. This is why. For security, children with a dad around are usually better off financially. Why? Because men like subjects that actually pay money. STEM, shout out to Complex, they go into the fields and they have the logic and they have despite what women like to say, men actually have a higher degree of intelligence. So when it comes onto the fields like science and tech, which are good earners, men are more likely to be in those fields because they're more competent to do well. More money means more security. They can provide a safe environment and pass on useful hints and tips to their children. A woman who's not operating a certain field cannot impart that knowledge to a child. Dads can protect mentally, but they can also protect physically because they're bigger. For choosing the right path, children with strong positive relationships with their dad have lower chance of becoming criminals or abusing drugs. They are less likely to engage in early sexual activity or drop out of school. This is what we said in the last video. Talking about the impact of single motherhood, the ability to persevere. A dad who listens to their child, has a close relationship, and sets up appropriate rules can directly affect their child's ability to be persistent. And this has a big impact on how the child will engage at school. We said this already. Competitiveness. Oh, black men don't compete. They can't compete with the white man. They can't overthrow white supremacy. With 70% out of wedlock birth rates and a number of these children not having a good relationship with their father, this is why your black man is not competitive. This is a big component. Dads tend to try to push their children just that little bit harder. They have strong hopes for their children. Teenage boys particularly need a dad to keep their competitive urge at bay when they try to be the alpha male in the family. It's a good way for teenage boys to learn about his position in the family and channel their strength in a positive way. For wisdom, dads have a lot of experiences and life skills to pass to their children. They can help to guide them and influence their growing sons and daughters to help them navigate tricky situations. And when children make mistakes, they can help them learn from them and get them back on track. Okay. And again, we're talking about opportunities. Okay. If a father has a job in a good area, he can impart, even if it's a skill like fixing his car, the child can learn from the father how to fix the car and then open their own garage. So there's lots of things that the father can impart because skills run the world. And when children don't have skills, they have to turn to their sexuality, because when they've got nothing else, at least they can sell their sex. This is why you have people promoting game and the mouthpiece, and women out here talking about leveling up and getting the bag. It's all kinds of sexual exchange, because sometimes we don't have anything else. So when children don't have skills, they're more prone to trying to use their sexuality as a bargaining chip. Okay, for their future careers. Again, when you add in all of what we've discussed already, ultimately what it comes down to is this: when children have a better start in life, their future prospects are better. Children who grow up with fathers who stay involved in their lives end up with better jobs and careers than those that don't, and are more likely to become economically self-sufficient. And another thing is this: fathers want their space, man. They want to sit around in their underpants. They want the food that they put in the fridge to still be there when they come back. So they're eager to push you out into the world. Whereas, again, as I said before, a mother is likely to see a child as an extension of themselves. And if they don't have a mate, they're going to try to hold on to those children, which limits their potential. So as a result, those children don't reach their fullest potential because their wings are being clipped. Whereas the father wants to push you out, not just so he can get his life back, but so that you can have that chance to fly the nest. Okay. Last two, for respect and authority. Children who have strong fathers learn how to cope with authority. What do we see in the black community? Thug culture, drugs, disrespect of teachers, a lot of problems where they don't respect older people. It's because they grew in a household where they didn't respect the adults that they were around. Okay. So children who have strong fathers learn how to cope with figures in authority, such as teachers and the police. They learn to respect rules and are less likely to be involved in risky behavior. And at the end of the day, they are happier. Having a loving dad around is an important predictor of a child's future well-being, happiness, and life satisfaction. Okay, so we get the picture. Okay, it's important to understand that children need a father, but it's important to understand why. It's not enough just to say, it's an optional thing. And a lot of the people who do put these arguments forward, they kind of insinuate almost that you can take it or leave it. But it's important that children have that input, because if they don't have that input, they end up going through what we talked about in the last video, and a lot of negative things happen. So I hope that that's been helpful. This is something that, we just need to culturally change. It's not enough just to say, a father is optional, take it or leave it. We have to actually look at why it's important to have a father in the home. Okay, so children have a variety of developmental stages, and this is what I was kind of debating with somebody recently. You have to understand that you have mental milestones that, if you miss that milestone, it's very hard to catch up afterwards. And so when you understand that the earlier you start investing in your children, the more chances you give them of being successful, the more likely you're going to take that role as a primary teacher. I did a video, Black women, you are your child's first teacher. Okay, it's important for you, if you have kids, or if you're an auntie or a mentor, a teacher, it's important to understand what's going on at that child's particular age, so you can start enriching and investing their life. Okay. Hey, Zachariah, how you doing? So Complex says, my daughter is so mature for her age, and that oftentimes I realize sometimes I don't need to be so hard on her. Yeah, of course. Or just, reward when she does well. You make sure that she's getting the reward so she continues to be incentivized, because you don't want her to be discouraged. Like, I'm always doing the right thing, but you never see it. So if she's doing well, maybe instead of decreasing, and maybe I can look up some stuff, or you guys can drop me a link. Morning, Zachariah. How you doing? Um, Ways that you can over incentivize. So if you have a limit for like pocket money, because she done well, you can top the pocket money up, and then you can say, well, you did really well. So it's a positive reinforcement as opposed to a negative one, which is, I'm going to take your pocket money away. So by understanding that children have certain developmental milestones, and this is what they're going through, and we're talking about cognitive development, because stressing children out can actually impact the development and the structure of their brain, which ultimately impacts their personality. So when you see people with these mental health problems, a lot of people say Black women have a lot of borderline personality disorder, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. A lot of that is to do with the way that they were raised. Antisocial behaviors can be established during the first year of life. If you have children who are left to cry for prolonged periods of time, that can alter the structure of their brain, which can lead to other mental health problems in adulthood. Okay, and how many times have we heard Black people say, oh, the baby's crying, just leave them, they'll stop. That's actually trauma. That's actually causing them to become so overwhelmed with adrenaline and cortisol that their brain starts to become overloaded. And as a result of that, it can impact the structure of their brain, and later on in life become depression, sociopathy, borderline personality disorder, all kind of other behavioral problems. So, I said this wasn't going to be too long, but I swear to God, it's like 2 hours. So shout out to everybody who was able to last. I really appreciate everyone who came through. In the comment section, let me know what you guys think. Share the video with somebody who needs to see it. I'm really proud that I was able to actually highlight your comments, because I really appreciate everyone's interaction. She gets Complex says she gets everything she wants for the most part. I just mean that in contrast to how I see other kids' behavior, my daughter is an angel. And that's a testament to you, that you're doing a great job. I'm really happy for you, because I understand that it must be really hard being a single parent. And it's not like you had an issue with your wife. It was sad that it went the way that it went, And for the guys who watched my last video, I said a widow compared to a single mother. You see, for Complex, unfortunately, his wife passed away, but he always speaks very fondly of her. So for people whose partner is no longer with them, they see the child as a living embodiment of the spouse that's gone. So the way a man or a woman who is a widow is going to treat their child is different from the way a person who is has animosity towards their parent, the other parent, because whether you have a good relationship with that other person or not, when you see the child, you see the other person. And if you have contempt for the other parent, there's a chance that you can have that bitterness and anger come out on the child. So when you love the spouse or the other parent, it's easier to love the child. But when you have issues with the other parent, oftentimes it's reflected in the way that you treat the child. Okay, so I really appreciate everyone who came through. Bless you. I hope you have a good week. Shout out to all the pick me's because it is Pick Me Monday. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.